Hello there. Our top story this hour. Algerian President Abdelmadjid Tebboune has just arrived in China for a state visit which will run through till Friday. The visit, which comes at the invitation of Chinese President Xi Jinping, is Tebboune's first visit to China as president. He was previously Algeria's communication minister and housing minister, as well as prime minister in 2017, before being elected as president of Algeria 2 years later. Now, Chinese authorities are holding a press conference on the national economic performance in the first half of this year. Officials will also be taking questions from the media. Now, let's go live to the scene.
下面呢，我首先呢还是通报一下上半年主要经济数据的情况，然后回答大家关心的问题。
of the first half of the year's economic data and then answer your questions.
上半年国民经济
In the first half of the year,
上半年
the national economy is
严峻
returning
的国际环境和
is
艰巨繁重的
recovering with
改
good
革
momentum.
发展稳定任务，
Faced with complex and
在
grave
以习近
international
平同志为
environment
核心
and
的党
arduous
中央
tasks to
坚强领导下，
reform, develop,
各地
and
区
ensure
各部
stability
门
at home,
认真
under the
贯彻
strong
落
leadership of the
实党
CPC
中
Central
央
Committee
国务
and
院
Commerce
决
Xi
策部
Jinping at
署
its core, all
坚
regions and
持稳
departments
中
strictly
求
implemented
进
the
工作主
decisions
基
made
调，
by CPC Central Committee and the
完
State
整
Council,
准确
adhere to the
全面
principle of
贯
making
彻新发
progress
展
while
理
maintaining
念，
stability,
加
fully
快
and
构
faithfully
建新
apply
发
the
展
new
格
development
局，
philosophy on all
着
fronts,
力推动高
accelerated
质量
efforts
发
to
展，
foster a new development
更
paradigm,
好统筹
focus on
国内
high quality
国际
development,
两个大局，
better
更好
balancing
统筹
domestic
疫情
international
防控和
imperatives,
经济社会发展，
COVID-19 response
更
and
好
social
统筹
economic
发展
development
和安全，
and development security,
突出做好稳
and
增
give
长、
priority
稳就
to
业、
ensuring
稳物价工
stable
作。
growth, employment, and
市
prices.
场需求逐步恢
As a
复，
result, the market
生
demand
产
gradually
供给
recovered,
持续增加，
production supply
就业
continued to
物价
increase,
总体稳定，
employment and price
居
were
民
generally
收入
stable,
平稳增
and
长，
residence
经济
income
运
grew
行
steadily.
整体维
The
持
national
向好。
economy showed a good momentum of
初步核
recovery.
算，上半年国内生
According
产
to
总
preliminary
值
data,
59万
GDP in the first half year
3034亿
reached
元，按不变价格计算，
59,303.4 billion
同比
yuan,
增长
up by
5.5%，
5.5%
比一季
year-on-year
度
at
加
constant
快1
price,
个百分点。
or 1
分
percentage
产
point
业
faster
看，
than
第一产业
Q1.
增加值
By
3
industry, the value added of the primary industry was
416亿元，同比增长
3,041.6
3.7%。
billion yuan, up by
第二产业增加值
3.7%
23
year-on-year.
万
Second industry up
0682 亿
by
元，
was
增长 4.3%。
23,068.2
第
billion
三
yuan,
产业
up
增
by
加值
4.3%.
33万
And tertiary industry was
1937亿元，增长
33,193.7 billion yuan, up
分
by
季度看，一季度国
6.4%.
内生产总
By
值
quarter,
同比
the
增长
GDP grew by
4.5%，二季度增长
4.5% year-on-year in the first
从
quarter
环比
and
看，
6.3% in the second
二季度国内
quarter.
生产总值
The
环比
GDP in the
增长
second quarter was up by
0.8%。
0.8% quarter-on-quarter.
一
First,
农业生产形势稳定，
agricultural
畜牧业
production was
平稳
stable
增长。
and animal husbandry grew
上半
steadily.
年农业增
In the
加
first
值
half
同
year,
比增长
value added of agriculture
3.3%，
witnessed
夏粮生
a
产赛
year-on-year
后丰
increase
收，
of 3.3%.
全年
Summer
夏
grain
粮产
had
量
good
总
harvest.
产
The
量
total output
1
of
亿
summer grain was
4613万吨，比上年减
146.13
少
million tons,
127.4万吨，
1.274 million tons less
0.9%，
than previous year,
产量居历
or
史
down
第
by
二高位。
0.9%, but still the second highest
上
in
半年
history.
猪牛羊禽肉
In the
产
first
量
half year, the output of pork,
4682
beef,
万
mutton,
吨，
and
同
poultry
比
was
增长 3.6%。
46.82 million tons,
其
up
中
by
猪肉、
3.6%
牛肉、
year-on-year.
羊肉、
Of this
禽肉
total,
产
the
量
output
分
of
别增
pork,
长
beef, mutton, and poultry
3.2%、
was up by
4.5%、
3.2%,
5.1%、
4.5%,
4.3%。
5.1%, and
牛奶产量
4.3%
增长
respectively.
7.5%。
Output of milk was up by
禽蛋产量
7.5%,
增长
and
2.9%。
eggs grew by
二季度末，
2.9%.
生猪
At the
存
end of the
栏
second
4
quarter,
亿
numbers of pigs registered in
3517
stock
万
was
头，同比增长
435.17 million,
1.1%。
up by 1.1% year-on-year.
生猪出栏
In the first half
3
year,
亿
the
7548万头，增长
um,
2.6%。
there were 375.48 million pigs slaughtered, up by 2.6%. Second, industrial production recovered gradually and equipment manufacturing grew fast. Total value added of industrial enterprises above designated size grew by 3.8% year-on-year in the first half year, or 0.8 percentage point faster than the first quarter. In terms of sectors, mining increased by 1.7% year-on-year, manufacturing increased by 4.2%, production and the supply of electricity, thermal power, gas, and water increased by 4.1%. Value added of equipment manufacturing increased by 6.5% and 2.7 percentage points faster than the industrial enterprises above designated size. By types of ownership, value added of state holding company was up by 4.4% year-on-year. Shareholding enterprises up by 4.4%. Enterprises funded by foreign investors or investors from Hong Kong, Macau, and Taiwan was up by 0.8%. That of private enterprises up by 1.9%. In terms of products, the production of solar cells, new energy automobiles, and industrial control computers and systems were up by 54.5%, 35%, 34.1% respectively. In June, value added of industrial enterprises above designated size grew by 4.4% year-on-year, or up by 0.68% month-on-month. In June, manufacturing PMI stood at 49%, and production and operation expectation index was 53.4%. 3. Service sector grew fast, and services involving contacts and gatherings improved significantly. In the first half year, value added of services went up by 6.4% year-on-year, 1 percentage point faster than Q1. Specifically, that of accommodation, catering, information transformation, software, information technology services, leasing and business services, financial intermediation, and wholesale and retail grew by 15.5%, 12.9%, 10.1%, 7.3%, and 6.6% respectively. In June, the index of service production increased by 6.8% year-on-year. The index of services production of accommodation and catering, information transformation, software information technology services, and leasing and business services went up by 20%, 15.4%, 9.3% respectively. In the first 5 months, the business revenue of service enterprises above the designated size grew by 8.5% year-on-year. In June, the business activity index for services stood at 52.8%, and business activity expectation index was 60.3%. Among which the business activity index for industries like air transportation, mail services, telecommunication, broadcast television and transmission services, monetary and financial services, and insurance were within the high expansion range of 60% and more. 4. Market sales registered good momentum, and sales of upgraded goods sped up. In the first half year, the total retail sales of consumer goods reached 22,758.8 billion yuan, up by 8.2% year-on-year, 2.4 percentage points faster than Q1. Analyzed by areas, the retail sales of consumer goods in urban areas reached 19,753.2 billion yuan, up by 8.1% year-on-year, and that in rural areas was 3,005.6 billion yuan, up by 8.4%. Grouped by consumption patterns, retail sales of goods were 20,325.9 billion yuan, up by 6.8%. Income of catering was 2,432.9 billion, up by 21.4%. Goods for basic living saw stable growth, with the retail sales of clothes, shoes, hats, and textiles, and of grain, oil, and food by enterprises above designated size up by 12.8% and 4.8% respectively. Sales of upgraded goods grew fast. Retail sales of gold, silver, jewelry, and of sports and recreation goods and of cosmetics went up by 17.5%, 10.5%, and 8.6% respectively. The online retail sales reached 7,162.1 billion yuan, up by 13.1% year-on-year. The online retail sales of physical goods was 6,062.3 billion yuan, up by 10.8%, accounting for 26.6% of the total retail sales of consumer goods. In June, the total retail sales of consumer goods went up by 3.1% year-on-year, or up by 0.23% month-on-month. Fifth, investment in fixed assets continued to increase, and investment in high-tech industries grew fast. In the first half year, the investment in fixed assets, excluding rural households, reached 24,311.3 billion yuan, up by 3.8% year-on-year. Investment in infrastructure grew by 7.2%, manufacturing grew by 6%, and that in real estate development dropped by 7.9%. The floor space of commercial buildings sold reached 595.15 million square meters, down by 5.3%, and the total sales of commercial buildings were 6,309.2 billion yuan, up by 1.1%. By industry, the investment in the primary industry went up by 0.1%, that in secondary industry up by 8.9%, that in tertiary industry up by 1.6%. Private investment dropped by 0.2%. Investment in high-tech industry grew by 12.5%, of which the investment in high-tech manufacturing and high-tech services grew by 11.8% and 13.9% respectively. In terms of high-tech manufacturing, investment in manufacturing medical equipment, measuring equipment, and Electronic and communication equipment grew by 16.8% and 12.2% respectively. In terms of high-tech services, investment in professional technical services and in services for transformation of science and technology investment grew by 51.6% and 46.3% respectively. In June, investment in fixed assets excluding rural households grew by 0.39% month-on-month. 6. Imports and exports of goods maintained growth and trade structure continued to optimize. In the first half year, the total value of imports and exports of goods was 20,101.6 billion yuan, an increase of 22.1% year-on-year. Total value of exports was 11,458.8 billion yuan, up by 3.7%. Total value of imports was 8,642.9 billion yuan, down by 0.1%. The trade balance was 2,815.9 billion yuan in surplus. Imports and exports of general trade went up by 4%, accounting for 65.5% of the total value of import and exports, 1.2 percentage points higher than the same period last year. Imports and exports by private enterprises grew by 8.9%, accounting for 52.8% of the total value of import and exports, 3.3 percentage points higher than the same period last year. Imports and exports with countries along the Belt and Road grew by 9.8%. In June, the total value of imports and exports was 3,488.3 billion yuan, down by 6% year-on-year. The total value of exports was 1,989.8 billion yuan, down by 8.3%. That of imports was 1,498.5 billion yuan, down by 2.6%. 7. Consumption price rose year-on-year and producer price for industrial products dropped year-on-year. In the first half year, the consumer price index CPI rose by 0.7% year-on-year. Grouped by commodity categories, prices for food, tobacco, and alcohol went up by 2.1%, clothing up by 0.8%, housing down by 0.2%, articles and services for daily use up by 0.5%, transportation and communication down by 2.3%, education, culture and recreation up by 1.7%, medical services and healthcare up by 1%, other articles and services up by 2.9%. In terms of food, tobacco, and alcohol prices, the price for fresh fruit went up by 7.9%, pork up by 3.2%, grain up by 1.6%, and fresh vegetable down by 2.7%. The core CPI, excluding the price of food and energy, grew by 0.7% year-on-year. In June, CPI maintained the same level last year and down by 0.2% month-on-month. In the first half year, the producer prices for industrial products went down by 3.1% year-on-year. Specifically, the prices in June dropped by 5.4% year-on-year, or down by 0.8% month-on-month. In the first half year, the purchasing prices for industrial producers went down by 3% year-on-year. Specifically, in June, the prices dropped by 6.5% year-on-year, or down by 1.1% month-on-month. 8. Employment was generally stable and service unemployment rate in urban areas declined. In the first half year, urban service unemployment rate averaged 5.3%, down by 0.2 percentage points over Q1. In June, the service unemployment rate in urban areas was 5.2%, the same as last month. The service unemployment rate of people with local household registration was 5.1%, and those with non-local household registration was 5.3%, of which the rate of population with non-local agricultural household registration stood at 4.9%. The service unemployment rates of population aged from 16 to 24 and from 25 to 59 was 21.3% and 4.1% respectively. Among the population aged from 25 to 59, the surveyed unemployment rates of population with junior high education or below, with senior high education, with junior college education, and with university education or above were 4.4%, 4.4%, 3.9%, and 3.2% respectively. Urban survey unemployment rate in 31 major cities was 5.5%, same of the previous month. Employments of underprices worked 48.7 per week on average. By the end of Q2, number of rural migrant workers totaled 187.05 million, up by 3.2% year-on-year. 9. Residents' income increased steadily, and income growth of rural residents were faster than that of urban residents. In the first half year, the nationwide per capita disposable income of residents was 19,672 yuan, a nominal growth of 6.5% year-on-year, 1.4 percentage points faster than the first quarter. Real growth was 5.8% after deducting price factor. 2 percentage points faster. In terms of permanent residents, the per capita disposable income of urban households was 26,357 yuan, a nominal growth of 5.4 percentage point year-on-year and a real growth of 4.7%. Per capita disposable income of rural households was 10,551 yuan, a nominal growth of 7.8% year-on-year and a real growth of 7.2%. In terms of income sources, nationwide per capita salary income, net business income, net property income, and net income from transfers grew by 6.8%, 7%, 4.7%, and 6.1% in nominal terms. The median of the nationwide per capita disposable income of residents was 16,393 yuan, with a nominal growth of 5.4% year-on-year. Generally speaking, in the first half year, socioeconomic development has returned to normal and macro policies manifesting effects. National economy showed a good momentum with high-quality development advancing steadily. But we need to see that international political and economic circumstance is complicated. The foundation for sustained economic recovery is not yet solidly footed. At the next stage, we must follow the guidance of the Xi Jinping thought on socialism with Chinese characteristics for a new era, adhere to the general principle of pursuing progress while maintaining stability, fully and faithfully apply the new development philosophy, focus on the top task of high-quality development and strategic task of creating a new pattern of growth, deepen reform and opening up, accelerate the modernization of industrial system, promote smooth economic growth, and make more efforts to change growth model, improve economic structure, and gather new momentum for growth so as to achieve effective enhancement of quality and quantity of economy. Thank you for your briefing. Now we will answer questions. Now, before you raise your question, please identify your media affiliation. Thank you for your question. CGTV. From the data just released, in Q2, economic recovery is advancing smoothly. And what is your assessment of the economic situation in the first half year, and what are the features? Thank you.
Since this year, as China's economy and society is going back to normal and recovering, and the policy stabilizing growth, employment, and prices are delivering, market demand is recovering, and production and supply has been increasing steadily. Employment has maintained stable, and people's well-being has been safeguarded, and development quality has been improved, and the national economy is recovering, going back to normal. First of all, economic growth has rebounded. In the first half, the GDP grew by 5.5%, which is significantly higher than the 3% growth last year and the 4.5% growth in Q1. Since this year, the global economy is seeing a sluggish recovery with a high level of inflation, and the tightening monetary policy of major economies are delivering spillover effects. Against such a complicated external environment, China's growth is significantly faster than major developed economies, which shows the strong resilience of China's economy. Secondly, domestic demand has been expanded. Our policies and measures have been releasing the potential of domestic demand, driving economic growth. In the first half, the retail sales of consumer goods increased by 8.2% year-on-year, which is a rapid growth, and contributed 77.2% to economic growth, significantly higher than last year. Investment has maintained growth, and rapid growth was seen in key industries and sectors, and it has helped us improve supply-side structure. The fixed assets investment grew by 3.8%, and 7.2% and 6% growth was seen in investment in infrastructure and manufacturing. Third, the industrial development has been consolidated with a series of policies for ensuring agricultural stability and growth in output and promoting real economy development. We have seen a more solid development foundation. Agriculture production has maintained stable. We have had a harvest in summer grain and vegetables and fruits, and poultry, eggs, and milk have ample supply. In the first half, the output of pork, beef, mutton, and poultry grew by 3.6%. Industrial production also recovered. the value added of industries above designated level grew by 3.8% in the first half of this year, 0.8 percentage points faster than Q1. Service sector has also seen rapid growth of 6.4%. with many of the sectors involving gatherings and contacts growing rapidly. And fourth, we have seen better structure, and service industries value added accounts for 56% of the whole GDP. And the equipment manufacturing value added has accounted for 32.3% of industrial value added above designated level, 1.4 percentage points higher than the same period last year. And we have seen an improved consumption and investment structure. The consumption in upgraded commodities and the retail sales of such products have been increased by 17.5% and 10.5% respectively, and the investment in high-tech industry increased by 12.5%. And number 5, we have seen stronger momentum of growth in innovation with growth in new industries, for example, such as aviation and aerospace industry grew by 22.9%, and information transmission and the software and information technology grew by 12.9%. And new formalities of business are growing rapidly. And we're seeing that the retail sales of physical goods grew by 10.8% year on year, and employment is also recovering, and the surveyed unemployment of urban areas was 5.3% for the first half of this year, and it went down since the beginning of this year. The per capita disposable income of our residents had an increase of 5.8% of real growth, significantly faster than last year. The gap between urban and rural residents' income was narrowed. The ratio was down by 0.05 compared with last year. We have seen a generally good momentum of recovery and a solid progress in transformation. But we're seeing that we're still facing challenges in terms of sluggish global growth and a lack of domestic demand. And we will continue to implement the decision of the Party Central Committee and pursue progress while maintaining stability. We will focus on high-quality development and implement our macro policies, release domestic demand, deepen reform and opening up, and push our economy for a general recovery and for an effective improvement of quality and reasonable growth in quantity. Thank you.
谢谢主持人。我是日本共同社的质量提问。2023年第二季度的经济增速受到去年疫情因素影响。
In 2023, the Q2's economic recovery was quite rapid compared with last year, but we are faced with complicated international circumstances. What will be the prospect for the second half? Will the 5% target be met?
Thank you for your question. In the first half year, China's economy is recovering with good momentum. With the social economy returning to normal, main indicators are overall improving. New drivers are being fostered and with high quality being fostered. People's livelihood are being improved and has laid a good foundation for hitting our target for the whole year. Going forward, despite complicated external environment and pressure for domestic economic growth, but the basic fundamentals for our economy for the long term has not changed. The features of being very resilient, having huge potential and vitality has not changed. With more positive factors accumulating in development, we have the positive prospect of continue to recover. First, the driving force of consumption continue to strengthen. Since the start of this year, parties have actively resumed and expand consumption. Its potential is gradually unleashed. and play a good foundation for economic recovery. In the first half year, the final consumption expenditure's contribution to to economic growth was 77.2%, significantly higher than last year. In the next stage, the employment situation will continue to improve. People's income will increase. This will contribute to the increase of people's intention and willingness to spend. At the same time, new energy vehicle sales, the sales of green and smart appliances will also have more supportive policies, which will expand consumption and promote economic growth. Second, the service sector is recovering with a good momentum. With social economy resuming to normal, service sector is growing rapidly, and the wholesale and retail, accommodation and catering and transportation and other service models are increasing rapidly, contributing to economic growth. In the first half year, service sector's contribution to economic growth was over 60%. Going forward, the services of cultural tourism and sports will further increase, and also the service demand for R&D, for exhibition will also increase. This will boost service sector and stabilize the economy. In June, the business activity index for services was 52.8%, and it has maintained in a high expansion range for 6 consecutive months. Third, new drivers continue to be fostered. We are implementing the innovation-driven development strategy and enhancing our strategic technology capacity. Applications of modern ICT, AI, and big data are being applied. Innovation results are cropping up. New products and new industries are coming into the picture. Since the start of this year, we have seen that the commercial debut of C919 large plane, and also the first 60 megawatt offshore wind power unit was being installed, and we are seeing high quality development in science and technology. In the first half year, the smart consumption equipment manufacturing increased by 12%, semiconductor parts manufacturing increased by 30.9%, aerospace, aluminum, industrial aerospace, aluminum, and other new materials and smart products are also increasing rapidly. For example, aerospace, aluminum, industrial control, computer and system, and their production increased by 23.3% and 34.1%. Going forward, the innovation will have greater driving force and injecting new impetus to economic development. Fourth, the effects of green transition is showing. New energy and green development is stepping up. Green lifestyle is being in the making. Green transition and economic growth are coordinating with good results. In the first half year, new energy vehicle, solar cells, and charging points and other new energy products increased by 35%, 54.5%, 53.1%. Lithium battery, solar cells, and EV vehicles export increased by 61.6%. Going forward, we have good driving force for green development, and it will continue to assist with the transitioning of economic growth drivers. We also need to see that countries, departments and regions are committed to high-quality development, and backward policies are targeted and providing good foundations for expanding domestic demand and channeling the economic cycling, providing good foundation for economic stabilizing and operation. On the whole, since the start of this year, our economy are shaking off the impact of the pandemic and returning to normal. Generally speaking, although we face difficulties and pressure, but we are seeing improvement in employment, residents' income, and domestic demand. Our structure will continue to optimize, and new drivers will continue to grow. Economy will be stabilized. So we have the capacity to realize our whole year target.
Thank you. Good morning. A question from Reuters. On the second quarter GDP growth, was it faster or slower than the National Bureau of Statistics' expectations, and which areas affect this outcome most? Thank you.
请翻译一下。
早上好，路透社记者提问，请问第二季度的增速是快于预期还是慢于预期，以及其中因素如何？谢谢。
谢谢您的提问。对于
Thank you for your question. As for Q2's economic growth, and since this year we are seeing a recovery to the normal track, we have had a good start in Q1 and we have maintained the momentum of recovery in Q2. Generally speaking, in the first half, the Chinese economy has had a momentum of recovery. Compared with other major economies, after the transition of pandemic, we have seen a more rapid growth in different economies, but different countries are in various development stages and they face different environment, and so they are quite different in terms of the speed of growth. Since our economy went back to normal, and now the consumption and service sector is going back rapidly in contributing to economic growth, and industrial production has also maintained stability, providing a strong underpinning. And generally speaking, we're shaking off the impact of COVID-19 and recovering. We have had a 5.5% growth in the first half, and in Q2 we had 6.3%. And the 5.5% is much higher than 3% last year, and the 4.5% we've had in the past 3 years average, and we have maintained relatively rapid growth in Q2. And the growth of 5.5%, it is a rapid growth in the world, and we're seeing sluggish growth in major economies, and the Chinese economy rapid growth provides an important underpinning for global growth. And recently, major international organizations have raised their estimation of global growth. An important factor is China's recovery. According to data that has been released in Q1, the United States, the Eurozone, Japan, and Brazil grew by 1.8%, 1%, 1.9%, and 4%. Even considering changes in Q2, generally speaking, for the first half of this year, China's economy grew fastest among major economies. Second, this growth features a better structure and stronger driving forces. From last year's investment and export-driven growth, we have achieved consumption and investment-driven growth. Consumption is contributing much more to economic growth. As I have mentioned, the final consumption expenditure contributed 77.2% to economic growth in the first half of this year. From production, it has shifted from industry-driven to services and industry-driven, with a much higher contribution of service sector of 66.1% actually. And third, this growth features a stronger driving force of innovation and a transition in development model. It has underpinned high-quality development. The high-tech industry investment grew by 12.5%, with information transmission software and information technology services grew by 12.9%, while retail sales online of physical goods grew by 10.8%. Green transition has delivered good results. As for our data for the first half of this year, the amount of sound quality water sections has increased by 2.1 percentage points compared with the same period last year. And new energy vehicle solar cells output increased by 35% and 54.5% respectively, and energy consumption efficiency has been enhanced. In the first half of this year, energy consumption per capita per unit of GDP decreased by 0.4%. And this growth features expanded opening up and better trade structure. China has been actively expanding high-level opening up with better trade structure based on mutual benefit. In the first half of the year, the imports and exports grew by 2.1% year-on-year. The general trade accounts for 65.5% of the total, and our trade is further diversified. Our imports and exports with Belt and Road partners increased by 9.8%, and that with Latin America and Africa grew by 7% and 10.5%. And cross-border e-commerce has also developed rapidly. And fifth, this growth features expanded employment and better livelihood for our people. Our urban surveyed unemployment rate was decreased to 5.2% in June, which is close to what we had before the pandemic. And the residents' per capita disposable income grew by 5.8%. This also increased people's willingness to consume. The consumption expenditure grew by 7.6% in the first half of the year. And sixth, this growth features a stronger safeguard in terms of food and energy security. All stakeholders have shouldered their responsibilities. Despite heavy rain before harvest, we have achieved the second highest harvest in history. And we have a stronger safeguard in energy supply. And primary energy output increased by 2.7% year-on-year, with crude coal, oil, and natural gas increasing at 4.4%, 2.1%, and 5.4% respectively, meeting people's needs for production and daily life. Thank you.
谢谢。封面新闻记者提问。统计数据显示，6月的 CPI 同比持平 ，PPI
CPI maintained at the same level while PPI was down by 5.4%. Does that mean deflation is coming? What is your assessment on the prices now? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Prices is of concern to many people. And there has been some discussion in the society on the possibility of deflation. And then it is a topic that I have touched upon in previous press briefings. Generally speaking, there is no deflation in the Chinese society, and there won't be one in the future. Although price is temporarily operating at a low level, but if we look at monetary supply and economic growth and other indicators, China's economy will not have a deflation because it does not meet with relevant conditions. In the first half of this year, because global sluggish recovery, international low price lead to the low price in China. And due to many other factors, China's general CPI gradually saw a slight drop. There are four features. First is the price of food is growing at a lower level. The price of vegetables and food increased by 6.9% and 7.9% and 6.4%. The general increase of pork in the first half of the year was 3.2%. Energy price decreased by 3.5%. Diesel and gasoline reduced by 8% and 7.3% respectively. Service products prices increased by 0.9% in the first half, 0.1 percentage point higher than Q1. And then core CPIs maintained stability. Core CPI in the first quarter increased by 0.7% year-on-year, 0.1 percentage point lower than Q1. In June, CPI was on par with last month, and this has garnered social attention. Generally speaking, CPI is operating at a relatively low level is a result of many factors, domestic and international. Since the start of this year, our economy is returning back to normal. Market demand is gradually improving, and with the increasing supply, the economy has a good momentum of recovery. During pandemic, we had policies to support companies and relieve their difficulties. This has made good results. Therefore, as a result, the supply of the market is increasing, and we are seeing improvement in employment as well. This employment also shows that the supply is improving. Due to pandemic, back in the pandemic years, the production was impacted by the COVID, so it takes time for them to recover. And that, to some extent, contributed to the current low level of CPI growth. There are also factors, international factors, and also the factors that last year's base was relatively high. And they are important factors that led to the low CPI growth. Going forward, with economy recovering and the economy's operation being more smooth, we will see an improvement of CPI. Food production is stable, that is conducive to food prices being stable as well. And the seasonal increase in the demand for pork will also be contributive. Also, in the future, the impact of low international energy prices will also have an impact. As for service prices, the services need will continue to expand, and the price will grow in a steady manner. In the second quarter, the service price increased by 0.9%, higher than Q1. We're seeing a diminishing impact of the high base of last year's data. Thank you.
Good morning. Market News International. Recently, the growth rate of investment in real estate development has declined. With the continuous relaxation of real estate policies, what is the trend of real estate investment in the second half of the year? Thank you.
请翻译一下。
美国国际市场新闻社提问：近期房地产开发投资增速下降，随着房地产政策持续放松，请问下半年房地产投资走势如何？
谢谢您的提问。
Thank you for your question. The real estate market is a concern for many people, and we have supported people's needs, reasonable needs in terms of basic and improvement housing, and we have ensured stability of the real estate market. In Q1, we have seen the demand released, improving the real estate market in Q2. And the market has gradually gone back to normal operation, and stability was maintained in the first half of this year. In terms of major indices, the sales and development and investment indices have improved compared with last year. In the first half of this year, the space sold was down by 5.3%. And the total sales turned from drop to growth. The investment we have seen the drop decreased compared with last year. As our economy recovers and our policy delivers results, greater stability will be restored in real estate market. Under the current policy, speculation has been gradually curbed, and the reasonable demand has been gradually released, driving development of the market. The high leverage, high debt burden model of some real estate entities cannot continue, and the supply is going through an adjustment, and market demand and market supply will be stabilized. From medium to long-term perspective, the market will turn into a stable development model. This is decided by demand and supply. Going forward, we will continue to ensure that houses are for living, not for speculation, and we will implement current policies and install long-term mechanisms to support people's needs and regulate the development of real estate market. As for investment in real estate, the newly launched construction space is going down, and the investment will continue to run at a low level, but the investment will go back to a reasonable level. We have noticed that accommodation and catering and other service industries have seen rapid growth. What is the reason behind that, and what is the trend going forward?
Thank you for your question. Generally speaking, the growth of service sector is one of the highlights of economic growth. Since the start of this year, with economy going into normal stage and the policies' effects are showing, service industries are returning back to normal in a faster pace. We're seeing a growth of new drivers, and the expectation of businesses are generally stable. Services increased by 6.4%, significantly higher than last year. Services with contacts and gathering needs increased. People's need for going out and dining out increases. In the first half of the year, accommodation, catering, warehouse, and other industries grew by 6.5% and 6.9% respectively, maintaining a high level of growth. Second, modern services are speeding up. Digital demand is increasing, driving industry growth. ICT and telecommunication increase. Telecommunication increased by 12.9%. Tourism also maintained rapid growth. Commercial lending increased by 11.9% year on year. Third, new drivers are growing. And high-tech industries are developing. High-tech services income increased by 11.9%. High-tech services fixed asset investment increased by 13.9% year on year. The fourth, expectation of service industries continue to stabilize. From market expectation, the expectation in June was 60.3%. 0.2% higher than last year, maintaining in a high expansion range. And that shows that the service businesses are having more confidence in the market. The fast recovery of service industries has created good conditions for the resumption of the economy growth. It also helps the economy's growth in many sectors. Since the start of this year, we're seeing a fast growth of people's dining out, going out and going to the movies, etc. And we're also seeing a new business forms and new industries. Technology are driving more economic growth. Online and offline formats are becoming more popular, and these all have added new driving force for services. The general recovery in service sector is conducive to people's well-being and employment, promoting stable growth. Going forward with the unleashing of potential, service industry has the good prospect.
谢谢主持人，我是红星新闻记者。我的问题是，请问上半年就业情况如何？
What is the employment in the first half of the year? Can we hit the target of increasing employment for the whole year? And is there an improvement in young people's employment since this is a graduation season? Thank you for your question. We cared about employment.
As our economy recovers, the employment has been improved. Specifically, the workforce market has seen stronger vitality. We have created more jobs. We have created 6.78 million urban jobs. And the participation rate of workforce has been increased. In June, the number of people employed in urban areas increased compared with the same period last year. And more jobs were created in accommodation and catering and transportation and other sectors. In June, the urban surveyed unemployment rate was 5.2%. The major workforce has a low level of unemployment rate, between 25 and 59, the age of 59. The unemployment rate is lower than that before the pandemic. As for migrant workers, their employment has been improved. In June, the unemployment rate for this group was 4.9%, a relatively low level. In Q2, the total number of migrant workers increased by 3.2% year-on-year. They have a stronger willingness to find jobs in the market. Our economic growth of 5.5% was faster than last year, and this means that companies will create more jobs and delivering better employment situation. And the service sector also contributed a lot by creating a large amount of jobs. Transportation, accommodation and catering, and tourism and other sectors involving contacts are recovering significantly, creating many jobs. And the policies, our employment policies, are delivering results. Departments and localities are implementing these policies to stabilizing employment and help companies to retain and create more jobs and give more trainings for employees. The offline employment activities are held to match the needs. And we're seeing that we're still facing challenges and problems in terms of structure and the total quantity. We're seeing both difficult difficulties in finding jobs and recruiting people. Employment is very important for young people's growth and future of the country. The Party Central Committee attaches great importance to that and has prioritized employment of young people and university graduates and instructed departments to roll out a series of measures and policies and implement these policies to help their employment. Going forward, we're seeing a promising prospect for a stable employment. And as more young people find jobs, the unemployment rate for young people will continue to decrease. Thank you.
谢谢主持人，是 CNBC 记者提问。我有3方面的问题。第一个就还是关于这个年轻人
From
的失业率。
CNBC, my first question is about young people's unemployment. Will it decrease in the second half of the year? As for fixed assets, the investment in real estate has decreased at a faster speed. What will its impact be on the growth of real estate market? And in the first half of this year, what is the sales of streamline? What is the of live streaming sales?
Thank you for your question. Now, judging from history, the unemployment rate in graduate seasons will likely increase. In June, we have 21.3% of unemployment rate for young people, slightly higher than last month. Since this year, we are likely to see more young people entering into the market and graduating. It is likely to increase. But with the passing of graduate season, and we will likely see a decrease in unemployment rate of young people after August. And your second question is on the real estate market. And in my previous answers, I mentioned that overall the real estate market is in adjustment. But compared to last year, the situation is stabilizing, both in terms of sales and the capital of businesses. There are improvements compared to last year. And going forward, with adjustment being put in place in the real estate market, it will continue to stabilize. And investment will gradually return back to a level of improvement. And then on live streaming, I don't have the data with me at the moment, but after the press briefing, please feel free to contact our office for more information.
第二排。
好，谢谢主持人。南方日报南方家记者提问。请问副司长，您如何看待上半年国内消费市场的表现？
What is your opinion on the domestic consumption market in the first half of the year, and what is the consumption driving force for the economy? What is your assessment of its prospects in the next half of the year?
In the first half of this year, consumption has seen a sound momentum of recovery. As our economy recovers and more consumption scenarios are delivered, consumption has been expanded and market sales are growing at a faster speed. The social retail sales grew by 8.2% year-on-year. As for per capita consumption expenditure, had a nominal 8.4% growth year-on-year, 5.9 percentage points higher than last year. It has several features. Consumption in services grew rapidly. As people's consumption in accommodation, catering, and transportation recovers, the per capita service consumption expenditure grew significantly faster than general consumption, among which 12.9% growth was seen in transportation consumption. The passenger volume increased by 5.6.3%. In the Dragon Boat Festival, the revenue for tourism increased by 44.5%. Upgraded commodities sales grew rapidly, and commodities consumption has also been expanded, especially those that meet people's needs for a better life. 80% of categories of commodities sales saw increase. We have seen 17.5% in terms of products such as silver and gold and jewelry, and passenger vehicles consumption grew by 6.8% year-on-year. Green consumption, digital consumption has been expanded. With the change in people's consumption concepts and our policies, the new energy vehicles sold reached over 3 million. Low energy consumption household appliances grew by over 20% year-on-year. According to big data, in Consumption Festival, smart household appliances grew rapidly as live streaming and other new forms of businesses grew. Online retail sales grew rapidly by 10.8% year-on-year. Fourth, cultural and recreational consumption grew rapidly, especially in rural areas. Sports events are coming back, and as well as shows and performances. People's expenditure in this area grew by 38.5% year-on-year. The film box office grew by 52.9%, with the number of audience increased by 51.8%. Rural revitalization has supported stronger consumption growth. Rural consumption grew by 8.4% faster than that of urban areas. Cosmetics and gold and silver and jewelry consumption in rural areas also grew rapidly. E-commerce in rural areas are developing rapidly, faster than the general level. Generally speaking, a consumption demand has been released in the first half of this year, promoting economic growth and improving people's well-being. From the whole year's perspective, we will continue to see consumption further released. And China is now in a stage of rapid growth of consumption with a new type of urbanization and better infrastructure for consumption. This can help us release the demand. And people have stronger capacity to consume with better employment and higher income. People have stronger capability and willingness to consume. And number three, we have a better environment for people to consume. We have more consumption scenarios now as our economy recovers, providing stronger vitality for the recovery of consumption. We have rolled out a series of policies to promote consumption, to boost consumption confidence. Green consumption and smart products consumption will boost consumption as well. Going forward, we will further boost consumption by increasing people's income, giving people a better employment, improve the supply, and nurture new types of consumption for a sustained and sound development of consumption. Thank you.
好，谢谢主持人。环球时报记者提问：
Global times, we have noted that in this year, the growth of investment has slowed down. What is the reason behind that? And what is your assessment on the investment data in the first half of this year? And what will it look like going forward? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Investment is also important for expanding domestic demand. Impacted by the real estate market, investment in fixed assets slowed down. But we have been acting to implement the decisions made by CBC, Central Committee, and the State Council, and have maintained growth in investment. Key investment in key factors are strengthening. First, investment infrastructure is growing fast. We're promoting investment in irrigation and other key infrastructure projects. 72% increase we saw in the first half of the year. And investment in real infrastructure and air infrastructure was 20.5% and 9.6%. In the first half of the year, new and infrastructure investment increased by 5.2%. And investment in integrated infrastructure was grew by 4.1%. Second, investment in manufacturing increased. Investment in technology-intensive industry increased rapidly. Manufacturing investment increased by 14.4%, supporting the investment. There has been transition towards green development. Investment in batteries increased rapidly. Investment in mechanical sectors increased rapidly. Third, innovation-driven investment increased. Technology and innovation had a good supporting effect for investment. Businesses have more demand for technologies. This has also boosted investment. Expertise services and transfer services investment increased by 31.6% and 46.3%. With the digitalization going forward, we're seeing faster investment in digitalization. Digital service investment increased by 22.2%. Green development of agriculture have also sped up. In the first half year, investment in green battery increased by 42.4%. Wind power increased by 16%. All these have shown that despite multiple factors, investment increase is slowing down, but the structure of investment is becoming more optimized, and it will further drive economic growth. Going forward, we will continue to let government policies take more effect and optimize investment structure and advance high-quality economic growth.
谢谢主持人。中国财经报记者提问。今年我国开展第5次全国经济普查。
This year we are having the 5th National Economic Consensus. Can you brief us on the work? Thank you.
也感谢您关心经济普查工作。
Thank you for your attention on economic census. The 5th National Economic Consensus is launched as we start on the new journey of building a modern socialist country in all respects. On 7th July, we have had the first plenary session of the leadership group for the census. And we have made deployment on the census and mobilize relevant stakeholders, localities, and departments to work closely together to move ahead with the census. Going forward, the key task for census is to get the basic status on all the legal persons and those involved in secondary and tertiary industries, and to try to identify which entities are included in this census, and to make sure that stakeholders know their responsibilities and that there is no overlap or entities that are not covered. This is a very important basic work we need to do to ensure the accuracy of the census. We will forge a list of entities for samples, and also the categories of forms that entities need to fill in. This survey covers all the individual businesses involved in all sectors. At the county level, the investigators will visit relevant entities to ask them to fill in forms. We will train our employees to go through all the key links, including data review. It will last from June to December, and those with certificates will visit relevant entities to gather information and data. We would like to request for your support to prepare for relevant certificates and provide relevant information accurately that will only be used for the census. We will ensure that the information remains in strict confidentiality. We thank your support for the census. Thank you.
谢谢主持人。每日经济新闻记者提问。我们注意到，尽管面临外需收缩的风险，今年上半年我国外贸进出口规模
contracting external demand, the imports and exports still hit a record high. What is the reason behind that, and what is the estimation for foreign trade in the second half of the year?
Thank you for your question. This is a question of wide concern as well. Global economy is recovering sluggishly, and major economies are tightening their monetary policies. And the global PMI for export and import maintain at a low level. So this will have some impact on China's import and export. But the features of high resilience and capacity of China's import and export is unchanged. In the first half, our export-import exceeded 20 trillion and hitting new record high. Export increased by 3.7%. Its share in global export maintained stability. Going forward, despite pressure, our foreign trade will also have the prospect of maintaining stability and improving quality. First reason is that we have a fully fledged industrial system in China. So the industrial foundation is well laid for China's import and export. Electrical equipment's import-export increased by 6.3% year-on-year. Second, policy effects is showing. We are committed to reform and opening up and facilitate trade with all countries and the building of FTAs and expanding of the space of foreign trade. Our export and import increased by 9.8% with Belt and Road countries. Third, new driving force of import and export continue to emerge. The competitiveness of our products increased. In the first half of the year, NEV, solar cells, Export increased by 60%, over 60%, and they have also provided good foundation for our increase in export. Policies to stabilize growth and optimizing structure is also showing effects. In the first half of the year, we're seeing the import of private enterprises increase by 8.9% year-on-year, providing a good support for stabilizing foreign trade. So generally speaking, we're facing pressures, but there are also good conditions. We need to continue to implement our foreign trade policies and hit our target of stabilizing growth and improving quality. In the interest of time, we'll have 2 more questions, please.
My question is about wages. So wage growth was about 5.8%, I think, which is slightly faster than GDP, but it's still not back to the pre-pandemic levels of above 8% expansion. How will that affect the sustainability of any consumption recovery? And how do you expect that consumption will grow faster than GDP when wages are basically only growing as fast as GDP? Thank you.
请翻译一下。
彭博新闻社提问：上半年的工资增长率是5.8%，刚刚大于 GDP 增长率，但是远没有恢复到疫情前的8%的高位水平。那么在这样一种情况之下，工资增长还没有达到消费增长，我们如何会期待消费增长率需要大于 GDP 增长率呢？如何会实现可持续的消费增长率的提高？
谢谢您的提问啊，您所谈到的这个工资增长。
Thank you for question. As for wage growth, I think you mean the increase of residents' income. We had a 5.8% increase in that. It is a relatively rapid growth. Before the pandemic, you mentioned the nominal growth. The 8% was nominal growth, not the real growth. As for this year, as the Chinese economy is shaking off the impact of COVID-19, and experienced recovery, employment is expanded and people's income is increasing. In the first half of this year, the per capita disposable income increased by 5.8%. This drives the growth of consumption as the total economic circulation continue to be smoothened. Going forward, this underpinning or driving force for consumption will continue to grow. The consumption's contribution reached 77.2% to economic growth. We will see a stronger driving force by consumption for economic growth. China's consumption is being upgraded and expanded. We will expand consumption by providing a better environment to further drive economic growth. Thank you.
谢谢主持人，我是澎湃新闻记者。上半年，我国规上
The
工业企业
paper
利润
in the
持续
first
2位数
half
下
of
降。
this
那
year,
么
the
请问
profit of
规
industrial
上工业企业
enterprises
承压
has
的
seen
态势何时能有
a
所改观？
double-digit
那么
decrease.
国家统计局对
How
下半
will
年的
this
走
trend
势有什
be
么样的预
changed,
期？
and what will it look like in the second half of this year?
工业运行呢，今年来说呢，是在整体上在稳步恢复。
The industrial operation is generally recovering,
这个企业的效益啊，这个联系紧密。
and it has a close relation with the profits of businesses. With the market demand recovering and the policies to upgrade the economy showing and the growing growth drivers, we are seeing good
上半年呢，
results.
全国规模以上工业增加值呢，同比增长3.8%，比一季度呢加快了
First,
0.8个百分
the
点。
profit,
那上半年在
the
41个工业战略行
output
业当中呢，
of
有
businesses
26个
above
行业实
designated
现
size
增长，
increased by
增长面
3.8%
呢
year
达到
on year.
63.4%。 在统计的620种主要工业产品产量
Among the 620 main industrial products being surveyed,
实现了增长面超过
331 products registered
20
growth.
产业升级的在稳步推进
Second,
工业
industry
生
is being
产
upgraded.
技术密集程度在持续的提高。上半年呢，装备制造业增加值
There is
同比
more
增长
technology
6.5%， 高于规模以上
intensive
工业增速 2.7个百分点。
operations.
对全部规模以上工业增长的贡献率达到了 53.9%，
Its contribution
有
to
力地
overall
支撑了工业
industrial
的生产
growth
恢复。
was
那么其中电气、机械和器材制造业、
50
汽车制造业增加值
over 50%
同比分别增长 15.7% 和 13.1%。三是高端制造业增长较快
Third, high-end
随着航空航天发展
manufacturing is
向好，
increasing rapidly.
国产大飞机实现商业航行，带动作用在逐步增强。
With the
上半年的航
C911
空航天器及
919
设备制造
commercial
业增加
flight
值同比增
having
长
its debut, we are
22.9%。
seeing a good
那么各
prospect
方面
in
加
that
强半导体等重点领域
sector.
关键环节的技术攻关，
We
相
have
关
made
生产也是高
breakthroughs
速增
in
长。
key
上半年半
technologies
导
such
体
as
器件、专
semiconductor
用设备制造业、
and
电子元器件
specialized
及机电组件设备制
mechanical
造
engineers
同比分别增长
parts
30.9% 和 46.5%。
have also seen increase in their production.
四是绿色转型成效显现，
Fourth, we are seeing
新能源
progress
汽
in
车
green
行业发展向
transitioning.
好，
New energy
带动相关
vehicles
产品较快增长。
sector
上
is
半年的新能
increasing.
源汽车产量同比增长 35%，
It has increased
锂
by
离
over
子动力电
30% in the
池、
first
充
half
电
of the
桩
year.
等产品产量同比分别增长
The
46.4% 和
Production
53.1%。
of solar cells
清
and
洁能源
battery
行业相关
batteries
产
also
品较快
increased
增长。
rapidly.
上半年光伏电池、
Clean
风力发
energy
电机组、
production
水
also
轮发电
increased.
机组产品产量同比分别增长 54.5%、48.1% 和 32.3%。五是智能型、新材料等新产品
Fifth,
生产向好，
smart and
智
new
能消费产品
energies are
生产增
increasing.
长较快。上半年智能消费
Smart and consumption
智能消费
oriented
设备制
products
造
are
增
increasing
长
in their
12%，
sales.
其中智能车载设备、智能无人飞行器制造分别增长 36.3% 和 12.5%。
Equipment
新
increased
材料
by
供给增加。
12%.
上半年太阳能工业用
In the
超
first
白
half of
玻
the
璃、
year,
多晶硅、单晶硅产量
The
分
silicon
别增长
and
89.1%、86.4%
glass
和
used
54.1%。
in different
关于
industries
您关心的
increased
这个工业企业利润的问题，
by
应该说
over
呢，工业生产的
80%.
持续恢复为企业盈利呢改善奠定了基础。
So this has laid a good
那么前5个月
foundation
规上
for
工业的
the
利润降幅
increase of
呢，
profits for
1至4月
businesses
份
in
收
the
窄 1.8个
industrial
百分点，
sector.
连续4个月改善。那具体表现为呢，一个是装备等制造业的利润持续
We're
恢复。
seeing the profits
前
in
5个月呢，
equipment
这
continue
个
to
促进
recover.
制造业发展的各项
In the
政策
first 5
措施显
months,
效，制造业利
the
润降
policies
幅
in
呢
this
1
respect
到
are
4月份收窄了 3.3个
showing
百分点，带动规模以上工业利润降幅呢收窄了2.5个百分点。
and
那
the
对工业
drop
企业的利
in
润
the
改善发
profits
挥了重要的作
decreased.
用。其中5月份装备制造业利润
In
同比
May,
增长
the
15.2%。
profit in
连续2个
manufacturing
月保持
increased
2位
by
数的增长。
15.2%.
二是电气水行业利润快速增
The
长。
profits in
前
electricity
5个
and
月
water
电力、
industry
热力、
increased
燃气
fast.
及水的生产和供应业
The first
利
5
润
months
同比增
supply
长
of these
34.8%，
resources
比
increased
1到
by
4月份加快 0.7个百分点，
13.8%,
持续拉动工业企业
1.7
利润的
percentage
增
point
长。
higher than Q1.
当前的
continue
工业
to
生产稳
drive
步恢
the
复，
profits.
发展质量继续提升，但工业产销衔接水平还有待进一步的提高。
At the current
下阶段
stage,
尽管
the
存在一定的困
quality
难，但是随着
in the
经济恢
industry
复
is
向好，
continued
市场需
improving.
求扩大，创新发展动力增强，
Going
新动能成
forward
长壮大，
with
促进工
more
业
new
发展政
drivers
策措
coming
施
into
落
the
地
picture,
见效，
with more
工业经济
policies
恢复
taking
的基础
effect,
将不断巩
the
固，
foundations
工业
for
企业的盈
industrial
利状况
recovery
有
will
望
be
继续
more
改善。
stable.
谢谢。
And
谢
we
谢
will
林会
have
市
a
长，
greater
谢谢各位记
prospect
者
in
朋友
that
们，今
in
天的新闻发
industrial
布会就到这里，
profits.
大家再见。
Thank you for your question. That is the end of today's briefing. Thank you.